In this episode, we get our drone army up and running with a pretty sharp-looking assembly of the new AI grid technology. But I go farther and break down these new AI blocks in a very unique way and explain the dependencies between these blocks to really equip you with how to make your own drones do amazing things. So I spent about a month working, tinkering, and testing with this drone and the AI blocks because I really wanted to understand how they work, just beyond where to click and what settings to apply to make them do some specific thing. I wanted to really understand how they work together and discovered a couple interesting things to get them to work properly with timer blocks, which is very common and needed. I'm going to use this drone as an example on how everything works. So first, let me tell you in basic terms what it's supposed to do. This drone will sit on a connector and be continually searching for enemies. When it detects an enemy, it will take off from the connector, fly to two waypoints directly above the connector, fly to a waypoint horizontally away, and then more freely go to fight the enemy it detected. When it's done, it'll return back to that final waypoint and follow the same path back to the connector to dock itself. I've set up some of these drones outside my base, along with my base's stationary defenses, to help fight any incoming enemies. These drones actually play an important part of my defense because of their range. The longest reaching weapon block only goes 2,000 meters. These AI blocks can detect enemies at 2,500 meters. So this gives you a little extra defense range to start engaging an enemy before they get in range with the standard block weapons. Even with those long-range weapon blocks, at the extremity of their range, it can take a couple shots and a rather stationary ship to dial things in to be able to hit your target. This, along with the cooldown time of those longer range weapons, will hopefully give my drone a chance to reach their target and start providing some harassment. Now, to be clear, no base is completely impenetrable unless you're inside a safe zone. So all this defensive action is just making it as difficult as possible. Now, with that as the backdrop, I want to go over the construct of how the AI grid blocks work together on this attack and defense drone. But I'm going to do it a little different than some others have shown. I'm going to show you how the dependencies between the blocks give you the behavior you want. Now, I consider the most central block around which all the other blocks work to be the flight block. There's probably multiple ways to describe the blocks, but I think this is the most straightforward way. The flight block tells the drone or ship how it's supposed to fly. It tells what speed it needs to fly, or whether or not to avoid other objects with collision avoidance, how precise it should fly between any waypoints you might set with precision mode, and that sort of thing. It doesn't tell it where to fly, when to fly, or anything else, just how it should fly. On my drone, I only have one of these, and I have it preset to the speed and flight characteristics that I want by default. To make the drone start to move and attack something, I actually use the defense block. The defense block's purpose is to have the drone flee when an enemy is within range, but I'm not using it to flee. I'm just using its detection ability. As soon as it detects an enemy, I have it set in action to start following a recorder block. On the recorder block, I've got 4 waypoints. That will allow the drone to take off and maneuver safely away from where it's docked, before further engaging the enemy. So the defense block in this build only acts as a trigger, and immediately transfers any movement control over to the recorder block. Now the recorder block is going to make the drone follow the waypoints, but it's going to follow them and fly in the manner that the flight block tells it. So those two blocks have to work together. Now, when the drone reaches the last waypoint, it triggers the offensive block. The offensive block now takes over where to fly and will go to the enemy and attack it. It will also fly to the enemy according to those speed and flight behaviors I set in the flight block. Now, at some point, I want the drone to return. There's a couple different ways to do this, but I have 2 event control blocks to do the job. One event controller will tell the drone to return when it's on its last bit of ammunition. The other when it's starting to run low on power. If either condition happens, it'll take control of the drone out of the offensive block, looking for an enemy to attack, transfer where to fly to the recorder block, and begin to go to that series of waypoints that'll safely land and dock the drone. This whole time, leaving the dock, going to attack the enemy, and returning back, it's still flying at the speed and behavior set by the flight block. This is essentially what my defense and attack drone is doing. It's not the only way to set things up, but I wanted to show how the different blocks work together to either trigger an action, fly to locations, and dictate how it should fly there. There's another block that can also give your drone some instruction to do something, and that is the basic task block. I'm not using this block in this build, but it can tell the drone or ship to follow a player, follow a ship, or perform certain kinds of patrol actions. If I were using it, it would also follow the flight behavior of whatever flight block I've got set. In truth, I'm also using some timer blocks in this build to either put delays on certain actions or to cluster several actions I want triggered all together in one block. Which leads me to a couple subtle but important points around using these blocks. Before the AI grid blocks, if I wanted to change how the drone flies, like changing the speed of the drone, I had to do it with timer blocks and some rather clumsy actions. I'd have to use 1 or 2 timer blocks to increase the speed in increments of 5, placing 1 occurrence of each speed increment on each of the 9 action bars. And if I wanted a very dramatic change, like going from 5 meters per second up to 95, I'd have to use 2 timer blocks and would wind up with 18 actions across the 2 blocks. To make it worse, if I wanted to slow it back down, I'd have to do the same thing in reverse, also across 2 timer blocks. So I'd have 36 actions in total. Very clumsy. Now, with the new AI flight block, if I want to fly at 2 different speeds, I just need to have 2 flight blocks, each set with the speed I want, and no special actions. For the most part, I just need to transfer flight behavior of the drone to the new flight block when I wanted it to change. Depending on what the drone's doing, I may have to do a couple extra things, but you get the picture. It's much simpler. Another interesting nuance I discovered with these AI grid blocks and timer blocks is that order matters. Up till now, I've always treated the timer blocks as if all the actions on a timer block are triggered simultaneously. And for all practical purposes, they are. But that's also not entirely true. Somewhere in the game code, it doesn't seem to do them all at the exact same time. It seems as though it progresses down the series of actions from 1 to 9, and procedurally fires them off in order. Now, on your computer or the server, it happens so quickly that we perceive the few milliseconds as simultaneous, and in most cases, it doesn't matter. But with these AI grid blocks, the sequence does matter, and can be a reason when a drone build isn't behaving like you'd expect. So for instance, if I wanted to stop the drone from taking offensive actions and transfer its tasking to come back home following a prescribed flight path, I couldn't just plop those actions down anywhere on the timer block. I'd have to first stop the offensive task, and then later down that numerical sequence, activate the flight recorder task to follow the waypoints. I discovered this when I was having some problems transferring control from the defensive block to the flight recorder, and then again transferring from the recorder to the offensive block. I had to make sure I ordered things up correctly on the timer blocks. My job here on the server as a pirate is to stir the pot a little and keep things interesting while staying within the guidelines of no excessive damage. Now that I've got my drone blueprinted and am able to print these things off with my simple single welder printer for some mass production, it's time to start using them to harass my neighbors and hopefully do a little resource acquisition. tune in to the next episode when I start setting up some pirate outposts, manned and patrolled with my automated drones. And I'll see you next time.